must be time to get started. So people are still coming in, and I'm delighted that it seems to be working. As I've said, this is a new system for us. My goodness, it's nighttime in Sweden, isn't it?
Well,
Um, I just want to welcome everyone who's here, and we will get started. One thing to know is that we encourage you to participate at whatever level of participation you want. Sing, don't sing, sing loud, sing quietly. None of us can hear you. So you're completely safe and in your own world there, but we're still together. And it's so wonderful to be together as singers and have a chance to really enjoy our voices, even in this limited way. We're going to have a little warm up section, actually, not little, we'll have a significant warm up section, and then we'll go into music. We're going to encourage people to ask questions via chat, and we'll monitor those and pass them along to Ragnar. I want to let you in on some really exciting news, and that is that we're planning to turn this into something of a series called Singing Saturdays. It's going to start in November 14th, and hopefully it's going to be little batches of 6 workshops at a time that you can sign up for, and there'll be weekly Saturday vocal get-togethers just like this over a period of weeks. So we're hoping that this will be a wonderful opportunity for singers to stay in good voice even when you can't be with a chorus or have that kind of outlet. So you'll get that through your email from Amateur Music Network. I neglected to introduce myself. I'm Lolly Lewis, founder of Amateur Music Network. I'm so glad you're all here today, and I don't want to waste any more time, so I want to turn it over to our wonderful leader, Ragnar Bohlin. Hi, Ragnar.
hi, Lolly. Thanks so much. Thanks so much for hosting me again. Lolly, just one question before we get going. Do we have a Q&A at the end, or?
I'd love that. Yes, we definitely are encouraging people to ask questions. So if there's something that comes up, either technically, I'll interrupt you to make sure we get it squared away, or if there's a particularly germane question after we get through the warm-up. But mostly I'd love to leave a few minutes for people to interact with questions and stuff at the end. Is that all right?
5 minutes at the end. Yes, excellent,
Great.
excellent.
Thank you.
All right, so I will repeat a few things that we spoke about last time because I suspect that some of you are new. So let's warm up first. Try to find a good posture, whether you're seated or whether you're standing, ideally standing. I'll be seated for the sake of the proximity to the piano. We find a good posture where the whole spine is a column where each vertebrae is resting upon the next one, and the head has a feeling of floating on the top of the neck. You could also have the image of hanging from a thread like a puppet. So with that freedom of the neck, and you can move around a little bit and find that balance point. Then have a feeling of lifting the chest a little bit. So we want to be relaxed, but not so relaxed that we collapse. Imagine a ballet dancer also needs to find the most agility and dynamic movement, but you don't want to be collapsing. That's not the type of relaxedness we're after. But with the framework that we have, always look for how can you do things with less effort. So with that, then try to find the space in between the jaw bones. This is such a big thing, I think. If you move around the jaw, open a little bit and find that the jaw, feel very clearly how the jaw doesn't open only like this, but it actually opens like that too. You can drop the jaw. And I had one teacher who used the term, let the jaw hang in its own weight. So you can experiment with that kind of really just drop it. And what happens then, which is so important, is that it affects the larynx, of course, so that the larynx can then, hang in its own weight. And that's so vital because in classical singing, we want a rather low larynx. And there are different ideas how low we want it. Some want it really low and some want it slightly low. But as opposed to pop singing like Lady Madonna, children at your feet, wonders how you want a little bit of a higher larynx as opposed to le, oh, oh. So that's a difference between just a few millimeters, but it makes the difference between classical singing and pop singing slash folk music slash jazz singing. It's the position of the larynx. So there's no right and wrong here, but in classical singing, we want to really drop the jaw, right? And the larynx, so that we get more of a pharynx space, the space between above the vocal cords all the way up to the soft palate. And that's the other crucial thing. We want a lifted soft palate, which you get when you breathe in through the nose, or if you're surprised, or if you can just, when you yawn. When we yawn, we naturally lower the larynx and lift the soft palate at the same time. So you can play with that for a second. And we want to be like a third way into a yawn when we sing. This is sort of in a nutshell, a quick description. Yawning more than that will get us into a too deep a larynx and suppressed larynx position. So with that opening, let's breathe in fully and then squeeze the air out actively on an S. Now engaging the diaphragm and all the support muscles, the abdominal muscles, squeeze out actively until you've emptied the lungs, and then hold still and register what muscles are now active and release everything suddenly, so that you get a free breath in without having to take a breath, as it were. Again, breathe out, squeeze out actively. This is your support, and we'll get back to that more in a bit. And then release. And now repeat after me. Using the same abdominal muscles that you used before. Now let's move into phonating. So if you could just sing yo ya yo ya yo. 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 There is a concept in Italian singing language which is inhalare la voce. Breathe in the voice. I'm sure you've all heard it from your voice teachers. The concept of breathing in the voice is, how I understand it, is that you want to have the relaxedness, the relaxation that you get when you breathe in through the nose or through the mouth, but ideally perhaps through the nose, and you relax and reset everything. Then you don't want to change a thing when you start phonating. You want to keep that openness, that relaxation. Yo, yeah, that's the feeling of inhalare la voce. Of course, you're not singing on the breath in. Yo, yeah, that would be crazy. But the feeling is that you're not changing a thing from the good breath in where you release everything. So let's apply that. Yo, yeah, yo, yeah, yo. Yo, yeah, yo, yeah, yo. Yo, ya, yo, ya, yo. Yo, ya, yo, ya, yo. Now, let's do an exercise which is very good to focus on having a very relaxed and without any sort of will interfering in the actual closing of the vocal cords. You want that part of the vocal apparatus to be very free. The vocal cords lie parallel to each other and the air passes through from underneath. You breathe out, and ideally you just need to sort of let the air pass through. Ha, and the vocal cords get pulled together. If you take two papers and blow through them, keep them parallel and blow through them, you'll see that they get pulled together. This is a physics experiment. It's called the Bernoulli principle. So moving air has less density than stale air. So therefore, you can just use that principle, keeping the vocal cords relaxed, close to each other. It's hard to see, of course, but just keeping that they're ready and just ha, 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 ha. You're not really doing anything, right? Except with the diaphragm breathing out, and the vocal cords get pulled together naturally. That's what we want. We want to avoid any sort of pushing the vocal cords together and have any tension there at all. So this exercise is very good for that. Yo, la. Let's do it like this. La, ah, 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 ah. Let's try. La, ah, 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 ah. So you try to avoid la, ah. Don't pinpoint the tones, just la. The second tone just comes as a result of the first one. Just think it. Don't nail it with your muscles. La, ah, 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 lo, oh, 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 le, And the higher we go now, watch yourself so that you're not stretching for the top pitches that we sort of, and the larynx wants to go up and reach for them. Instead, try to think that you keep that larynx relaxed and low all the time. Once again, la, la, lo, At any point, altos, basses go down an octave. La. La. Okay, so now let's, that's a very light exercise. Now let's engage the support a little bit more. And for those of you who were with us last time, I spoke a little bit about support. There are so many ideas what support is. It's such a, everybody talks about it and everybody has different ideas. And I love this explanation that one of my teachers back in the day told me, that they made an experiment with 10 top singers. This was 40 years ago or so. And asked them what support is, and they had different ideas. Somebody, one of them pointed to the diaphragm going out, and one said no, it goes in, and one said the sides down here go out, and somebody said no, it's the lower abdominal muscles that go in, and some said they go out, and somebody pointed to their his or her back. So they had different ideas, and then they measured with instruments, electronic instruments, to see what muscle groups were actually engaged. And it proved that they did do different things. It also proved that they didn't always do what they thought they were doing. But the main conclusion was that whatever you do, you need a control of the subglottal pressure, of the air pressure. Let's call it the bellow, the lungs. You need somehow to control the speed of air. And whatever you do that with, what works for you is your support. I like that description. I also like calling it the laughing muscles. Ho, ho, ha, 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 ho, ho, ho. Whatever you do when you laugh, right? Ha, 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 ha. That is also your support. It's simplified and in a nutshell. And I know there are different ideas out there, but that's how I like to think about it. So now with the support, Signore. With this exercise, I also like to practice what we call legato marcato. So give a little bit of sforzato, a marcato on the yo. So go from, let's say, 80% down to 40%, and then stay there. Yo. that's a skill that we're going to be using for the Mozart Requiem as well. So try to focus on that aspect of it. Here we go. Signore. Try to avoid yo. Don't let the tone die. Just go from 80 to 40 and stay on 40. Otherwise, it's only marcato. You want marcato legato. Signore. Signore. Signore, one more. Signore. Now let's climb down. Riva del Sol. Italian. Riva del Sol. Roll the R. Very clean vowels and legato. Here we go. Riva del Sol. 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 One more. That's a D flat. That's enough for today. Let's climb up a little bit more on this. One more for sopranos, tenors. Now, coloraturas is going to happen a lot today in the Mozart. Let's do lo. Simple exercise. Sorry. That's right. Lo. And at this speed, it's sort of the close to the maximum speed that you want to do a connected legato coloratura. Try to control it from the diaphragm, a rather high and taut diaphragm that pushes with sort of a quick laughing muscle action. Lo. Let's try it on la. La, le, lo, lo, la, la, lo, la, la. Okay. Let's try. Lo, lo, le, la, lo, Finally, just a little bit of stretching and going up to the top notes. Let's try this. Let's try. Think down when you go up. All right. I hope you're warmed up. Let's dive into Mozart's Requiem in Süssmayer's version. And Süssmayer, of course, was the one who completed the Requiem after Mozart died. And after the initial 8 bars of the Lacrimosa, which we'll be touching upon today, that's where, and when Mozart died, and he left the Requiem uncompleted. And Süssmayer's is the most famous version of it. And sometimes it's been a little bit underrated because I guess it's the most popular one and you have to critique it. So there are other completions of it that are also interesting, but I think he did a really good job in completing this work. And we're going to start now from the very top, from page 9, if you have the CPDL or the IMSLP version that we sent out to you. From the double line, second bar, from where the Kyrie eleison fugue starts. First of all, it says forte, and I love this. In so many masses that we sing, there are forte sections of Kyrie eleison, and we need to be very mindful and careful when we sing these words. Kyrie eleison. I don't think that's really the right effect. Very often it comes out like that. The music invites it and it says forte. But what are we saying? It's Greek, of course, and it says, Lord, have mercy. Christ, have mercy. Christe eleison, Kyrie eleison. Lord, have mercy. And we don't want to shout to the Lord, Lord, have mercy on us. No, it needs to be another quality of forte, I think. So as a little element of desperation, perhaps, in that forte would guide us to the right effect that we want here. Kyrie eleison, maybe something along those lines, right? Musically, of course, this is very you want this to be very grounded. As opposed to the second subject, Christe, which has a different feel to it. But here, if we apply a little bit of what we talked about, the marcato legato, Kyrie eleison, as opposed to just the same decibel forte, Kyrie eleison. That's a little bit stiff and heavy, don't you think? So I like to think of it with a little bit of a marcato on each note. Not too much, not too little, but a little bit of going from, let's say, 90% down to 70%, something along those lines. Kyrie ele. The upbeat, the fourth beat, could be a little bit more just like a crescendo. Is on a matter of taste. Kyrie eleison. That's pretty nice musically. But if we, as singers, we need to think about these things, the micromanagement of the dynamics. So let's all try it together. Just the head of the theme here. 2, 3, and. So one more thing musically that we need to consider, if we just play it. you may want to taper the last note or you may not. But when we sing it, eleison, we definitely want to taper that last syllable. And the great composers most of the time compose so that the text emphasis matches with the musical emphasis. Not always does that happen, but quite often. And sometimes they are in conflict with each other and we need to make a choice and maybe blend the two. But here, try to think of that as well. Kyrie eleison. Maybe taper just a little bit. Doesn't mean that the last note is dead or doesn't have a little bit of an accent. I think it still should have a little bit of marcato. Could you all try that again, please? 2, 3, Kyrie eleison. So that's a good kind of statement, right? Let's do it one more time and think of the effect that we're not, one thing that I love to tell my singers, don't find yourself frowning when you sing this. Ki, that's definitely the wrong effect. Rather lift your eyebrows a little bit. Ki, and a very aspirated K I also think helps. Kyrie, please, please, Lord, have mercy, right? So let's try it again. 2, 3, and Kyrie eleison. Okay, now let's continue. Here it's very important that we thin out on the dotted quarter note. Eleison, eleison. So if you heard you give it a little bit of a push and then you thin out and leave a little bit of gap before the 16th notes. Very typical trait in all Bach music. This is very helpful to apply because it gives more clarity to the following 16th notes. Let's all try just that. Here we go. 2, 3. Eleison, eleison. So at the end here, eleison, there's a temptation, eleison, to sit on that. But I think we should sort of point to that third beat, but then yield in the last second. Eleison, eleison. Don't smack it too hard. So since I can't hear you, I don't know if we're moving too fast or if it's, let's do it a little slower once. That same bar. Here we go. 2, 3. Very good. So what we want to aim for is the 16th notes to have a lot of diaphragm thrust. So a connected coloratura, as opposed to really fast coloratura when you do perhaps la, lo, Cecilia Bartoli style. But in this tempo that we're aiming for now, definitely have it connected and control it from the diaphragm. And if you don't get the clarity that you want, try to focus on this part of the diaphragm. Le, this is where you should feel it, or maybe a little bit lower. But this is all active and a little bit taut, and then you need that very quick, fast action. Okay, so let's do it in tempo from the same spot. 2, 3. So one more element. We're now all singing the bass line, right? But the alto line is more or less the same. I think one should, once we have the bar with just 8 notes, go for a very legato. I call that painting when we're a little bit, it's a little bit of micromanagement of each tone, a little bit of caress on each 8th note, as opposed to on. That's also legato, but it's much more crude, don't you think? So it's like a string player playing back and forth with a little bit of differentiation of speed of bow. That's what we're doing with the airflow here. And it's more refined. So let's do the whole theme now from the double line. 2, 3. Kyrie eleison, eleison. Okay, good. Now the second subject, and we'll let's focus on the alto line to start with. It's in a range where we can all sing it. Text, of course, Christ, very clear K, and we'll do the under tempo first. 2, 3, 4. Christ eleison. So we end up on a downbeat, and the whole phrase points to that downbeat, but we don't want, here I think a balancing of the text emphasis and the musical emphasis is due. We want to just yield a little bit. A little bit of a gap after the 8th note A is also very helpful. So let's try it again, same tempo. 2, 3, and Christ eleison. Well, we're almost up to tempo already. So if we find ourselves not getting the clarity that we want, let's say it's difficult to find the clarity, try to sort of ask yourself to get clarity at the last 2, perhaps 16th notes of each group of 4, or the last 3 of each group of 8. I typically like to think of the last 3 before your point of arrival, in this case the C sharp. Those, try to aim for those. If anything, at least those should be clear. So Christ, that's also a way to think of it. Try to sort of make your goal to make at least a few of them clear, and then bit by bit you can make all of them clear. Let's try it again. 2, 3, and Christ eleison. Now let's try the same with the tenor line, the same exact way of thinking about it. 1, 2, 3. Christ eleison. So same thing there. Is on. Taper at the end a little bit. So with the E vowel, careful not to sort of stretch it out too horizontally. Try to find a horizontality, and we may want to color it just a little bit. This is something Nicola Gedda always taught, a little bit of schwa coloring to the then it's easier to find that verticality, drop the jaw, drop the larynx, right? Let's try the tenor line, everyone. I know it's a little high for alto spaces, but try to sing along, and you can also go an octave down if you wish. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Christ eleison. So same thing here. Once you come out of the quick notes, first bar of page 10, molto legato, and this is a bit more difficult because it's a broken triad here, but try to really glue it. Could you all just sing from there? Let me show you once. And careful not to you don't want that top note to stick out. Very easy on that E. Let's just go from the G sharp, everyone. And 1, 2. And so on and so forth. That's sort of in a nutshell the technical stuff we're dealing with in this first movement. We could, for fun, let's do the soprano line as well from the first page, from page 9, bottom line, first bar. Here we go. So apply the same marcato legato that we had before. And 1, 2. Kyrie eleison, 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 eleison. liaison. Always taper that last zone. It's a temptation, liaison, to crash into it, right? But a little bit of tapering. All right, I think we should move on. Rex tremendum. So here, just full voice, a little bit of bite to the attack again, but it's sort of fully sustained quarter note. Let's try that. Pick any line. Rex. 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 Rex tremendum majestatis. And here, this is what I really want to focus on. Let's do the bass line first. There are two ways of doing this. You can double dot it, as I just did, or you can just read it as written. Rex tremendum. Two traditions. You can do each one. Let's start with double dotting. Then it's very important that we get enough heft on the small note, because otherwise there's a risk that it disappears, right? Rex tremendum majestatis. Again, we need a little bit of marcato on the long note. Otherwise, again, we'll sort of kill the short note if we Rex tremendum sing full voice throughout. Rather, re, ba, you pull back some 20-30%, and then you really pounce on that 30-second note. Let's try that. You can pick any line, but I'm going to do the bass line here. And one, and Rex tremendum majestatis. Okay. Tremendum. You need to sneak in the N, and with full voice, as full as you can. Mendum. Make sure that you have that a very sonorant N, and that is sort of a feeling of a double N. Tremende. When you say it, it's you don't linger on the vowel, you linger on the N. Let's try it once more. Let's pick the alto line this time. And one, and Rex tremendum majestatis, Rex, and so on. Now let's try it without the double dotting, and then it would sound Rex tremendum majestatis. And here I think it's interesting to focus on treme, tremen. I like to have that really drawn out, the vowel, when it's now a 16th note. Long vowel and as fast an M as you could possibly do. Treme, treme. Not treme. It's a matter of taste. But it's something that if you listen to really good opera singers, they will use that really short M and N when they want a super legato. Treme, treme. So Rex tremendum dema. Again, that fast M before majestatis, right? Let's try. Alto line and one and Rex tremendum majestatis. So that is something to really think about, the quality of those MNs and occasional Ns when you want it really fast. This is something that you have to really foster. It doesn't happen by itself. Now let's continue with the alto line for a little bit, because this is very interesting. Now what happens? Rex tremendum majestatis. I double dotted again. But we have this very long note, and it just sits there, right? So what do you want to do with it? Probably not Rex tremendum, just sort of sing and vibrate. No, you want some kind of line and logic to it. And I think the first thing is, again, we're talking about matter of taste now, but I think it's very helpful to sing it straight in the beginning. Thereby, you will give more space for the listener's attention to listen to the interesting stuff that goes on. The accompaniment, right? And also the other cues, the sopranos coming in and the tenors having their line. So you leave more openness for them, for the audience to hear that. also you create an ability to create a sense of line and development in the tone. So try something like this. Rex tremenda maestat. A little bit of hairpin, perhaps a little bit of crescendo, and while you're growing on the tone, keep it straight, and then once you've peaked in the hairpin, then release a little bit of vibrato. Let's try that. And one, and Rex tremenda maestat, Rex tremenda maestatis, Rex tremenda maestatis. Satis. You want to taper that a little bit, right? All right, so those two things, how to treat a long note and find life in it, and where to apply straight tone and vibrato, have that in a good balance. Let's move on. Time flies. And the next one, again, it's forte. And we need a marcato. I can't stress the importance of this marcato enough, because without it, a forte would sound like confutatis, maledictis, very crude and sort of uninteresting, as opposed to confutatis, right? That's our legato marcato. So let's apply that again here. Let's start with a bass line. And one. Confutatis, maledictis, flammis acribus addictis. And here, musically, I think it's very important that they're all the same. Bam, ba bam, ba bam, ba bam. If anything, there should be a tiny bit of growth to the downbeat. Flammis acribus addictis. But try to have a feeling of those 16th notes, that you really pounce them with equal force each time. Let's try. And one. And flammis acribus addictis, maledict. Sorry, I got lost. And three. And maledictis flammis acribus addictis. Sorry, I screwed that up. Maledictis flammis acribus addictis. That's our point of arrival, and a little bit of tapering. Let's try the tenor line. 1, 2, 3. Confutatis, maledictis, flammis acribus addictis, flammis acribus addictis. Another temptation here is to sort of slur, to get a little bit fuzzy with the strictness of the dotted. Bum, ba bum, ba bum, bum, ba bum, ba bum. You don't want that dot to get looser and looser and less sharp, as it were. So keep that very stringent. Let's go straight on the second line, second bar, tenor line. And 1. Flammis acribus addictis, flammis acribus addictis. After line. Vocami, vocami cum benedictis. Listen to me is what you're saying here, and listen to our prayers. Ultimate contrasts to the forte marcato legato that we just had. Sottovoce, which literally means under the voice. You sing under the voice. So very soft, and off core. You don't want too much. You want to sacrifice a little bit of the core, a little bit more breathy tone, just a tad of that. And again, try to apply a sense of how that long tone develops, so that you don't just sit there. Let's try. 3 and. Here's another interesting thing. Okame cum cum. That M I think should be sung and rather long, but then benedictis. I think those vowels should be very long. So let's go for a very quick N. Benedi, and a very quick D, not benedi, but benedi. Benedi, benedi. It creates that wonderful sense of legato, and you can have a little bit of crescendo to the downbeat through that molto legato. Let's all try that. Soprano, ser, alto, ser. Second bar of page 37. 2, 3. Vocame cum benedictis, confuta, maledictus, flammis ocribus, and so on and so forth. Then it's all the same. And now let's move on to the gorgeous movement number 7, Lacrimosa. The very last thing that Mozart wrote before he died, these opening 8 bars. The tears and the crying of this day when from the ashes, human beings will rise to be judged. So as much legato as you can. Again, a little bit of development. If you all will take whatever line you want. The tenor line, same thing. A little bit of development, a little bit of crescendo, and maybe keep it straight on the onset of the tone, and then a little bit of vibrato midway through. And then molto legato. Lacrimo, crimo. You want a very fast M here. Crimosa, not crimo. That's too mundane. Crimo, crimo, crimo. Very, very, very slim and fast M. I'll play you the intro because it's so gorgeous. Now, something different. Qua, re. There's a term in Italian called soffiato, which means whisper voice. Stage whisper, we can also call it. Qua, when we mix more air in, so that we don't have as tight a closing of the vocal cords as we do when we ma, qua, 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 ah. We deliberately keep the vocal cords a little bit apart so that more air seeps through in order to get this effect of whispering. And in this case, it's sort of we're frightened, and hence the short notes as well. I think that's how we need to interpret Mozart here. Qua, re. We're staggering, we're stammering out of fear, right? Qua, then we'll find the right emotional approach rather than technically just qua, re, su, qua, re, sur. So let's try it that way. Here we go. 3 and 4. And qua, re, sur, jet, ex, fa, vi, la. And here's the trick also. Try to keep those bars, even though it moves up, at least for sopranos, it really moves up in register, but try to save the crescendo for the following 2 bars or the following bar. Here, no crescendo. Let's try it again. 3 and 4. Qua, re, sur, jet, ex, fa, vi. Pick any line. And that's Süßmeyer from there. And I think he did a very good job. So that's the gorgeous Lacrimosa. Lastly, I'd like to do just the opening of Domine Jesu Christi. Again, focusing on these fast M and N's. Domine Jesu Christ. I don't know if you can hear me, but try to read it that way. as opposed to, I'm going to read it the way I don't want it now, Domine Jesu, with sort of heavy consonants here, but Domine Jesu, you want them clear, but very, very fast. So read after me, Domine Jesu Christi. Here we go. Domine Jesu Christi. And thereby try to add on top of that legato that we now have a sense of one in a bar. That whole full bar leads to the second bar. Domine Jesu Christ. With the voice part, let's try that. Let's take the bass line. 2, 3. Domine Jesu Christ. And Christ. So a little bit of emphasis on the first downbeat, but then you just have one sense of a hairpin to the second bar and then taper. Let's try the tenor line. 2, 3, and Domine Jesu Christ. Let's try the alto line. 2, 3. Domine Jesu Christ. And a soprano line. 2, 3. Domine Jesu Christ. This so easily gets chopped up. Domine Jesu Christ. And we stand on each quarter note. But doing it this way, we sort of put in a gear where we're in almost a feeling of one in a bar, right? Domine Jesu Christ. With to pick your own part, and we'll try it again. 2, 3, and Domine Jesu Christ. Rex Gloria, Rex Gloria. So here, big contrast. Now marcato. Rex Gloria, Rex Gloria. And again, very important with the marcato. Without it, Gloria, Rex Gloria, it becomes crude. Gloria, Rex Gloria. Try that with the pick your own part. Upbeat to second line. 1, 2, 3. So that's that. Again, big shift. We're kind of back to the modus from the first 2 bars. Libera anima somnium fidelium defunctorum. The alto line is tried. Legato and very smooth, a feeling of 1 or perhaps 2 in a bar. 2, 3, and Libera anima somnium fidelium defunctorum. Here's another detail that I like to linger on. How to deal with a libera animas. Do we want to throw in a glottal stop? Libera animas. That becomes clear, yes, but a little, it breaks the flow without any kind of separation. Libera animas. It kind of blends together and it becomes a little slidey. So what you can do is a tiny bit of a cushion of air, I call it. Libera animas, libera, ha, ha, ha. Almost like an H, but it's not an H. An embryo of an H. Libera animas. Let's try that. 2, 3, and Libera animas omnium fidelium defunctorum. Let's try that with the soprano line. 3 and 1. Libera animas omnium fidelium defunctorum. Oh, darn it, I'm so sorry. Let's try it again. 3 and 1. Libera animas omnium fidelium defunctorum. And here, defunctorum is the emphasis, but it's on the 4th beat. Where do we put the emphasis? Defunctorum, defunctorum. I think there should be a little bit of blending. Do go for the 4th beat, but don't over taper to the downbeat. So those occasions happen when we need to mitigate between the word emphasis and the musical emphasis. Most of the time not, but sometimes yes. All right, the last thing I wanted to touch upon is Quam olim abrahe. And actually it had to do with the glottal stop thing and the pocket of air thing. Quam olim abrahe. If we put in 2 glottal stops, quam olim a, you can do that, but it becomes a little clumsy with 2 glottal stops. I would pick the second one, quam olim abrahe, but I wouldn't sing quam olim. I would again use that pocket of air, quam olim, quam ho ho ho. almost quam holim, but quam holim abrahe, quam holim abrahe, promisisti. And here, promisisti, we actually don't take a breath there because you'll be too late. We need that little eighth note rest for the PR, for the consonants. Let's just try that the last thing we do here. 2, 3, and quam olim abrahe promisisti et semini eius quam olim abrahe promisisti. Let's try the alto line. Altos. 2, 3, and quam olim abrahe promisisti et semini eius quam olim abrahe promisisti, and so on and so forth. So this was sort of to highlight a few technical aspects that we can benefit from singing when we sing the whole Requiem. So this was absolutely not the aim to sort of learn our parts in the Mozart Requiem, but hopefully to give us a toolbox, what we can use for such like instances when they occur in the piece. So with that, we have 5 minutes for questions, if there are any.
We haven't had any yet, Ragnar, but that was really wonderful. That was so much fun. Thank you. So
Great.
Let's just give people a chance to see if they have some questions that they want to ask us.
Yeah.
Did you guys have a good time? Yay. Good. I'm glad.
I want to say a special hi to Louis Mager. I'm so honored to see you here. Lou was my predecessor's predecessor with the San Francisco Symphony. It's so great to see you, Louis.
It's been a pleasure. I've been sitting here just reveling in your expertise, and I've got a whole list of things.
Fantastic.
This old dog is learning new tricks.
Wonderful to see you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We have someone who says, can we prepare the Mozart Requiem to perform it sometime? Well, wouldn't that be great? Probably not really soon.
Yeah.
We have a question. Do you have a recording you particularly like of the Requiem?
Oh, you put me on the spot there. It was a long time ago. I was sort of kept track on the Mozart Requiem recordings. Not on the spot. I can't. There are so many good ones, but I can't.
If you come up with one, we'll put it on the resources page. And folks, we'll put the video up from today. So you already have the link to that assets page. So you'll be able to go back to that within a day or so. We'll have that video up for you, and you can come back and sort of review what we've learned today. There have been, the chats are really wonderful, Ragnar. People are really thanking you and very appreciative, and I'll share them with you. But one thing that people are asking for resources to work on the things that we did today, and I think maybe just coming back and listening to this material again will be helpful. Plus, don't forget, we're going to initiate this series, so I'm sure just getting a weekly immersion with Ragnar will really embed some of these techniques for you. I look forward to that myself.
Hi, Lolly, can I just say something?
Yes, please. Hi, Cordy.
I'm the chair of Lolly's board, and I'm having a wonderful time watching you all and learning. I've been singing in the symphony chorus for 27 years, and the last, how many years, Ragnar, has it been now? 14?
Let's see, 13 years.
Wonderful. 15.
13.
13 years, wonderful years learning from Ragnar. And what I wanted to say to you all, and I'm an amateur singer too, by the way, I'm not a professional. And what I wanted to say to all of you, my colleagues who love to sing, that these kinds of wonderful tips that Ragnar has just given us today, I have to go over them over myself, even after many years of working with him. And so this is like great stuff, and I'm really happy we're going to be able to record this so you can have a look again. I certainly will look myself. And thank you all for coming. It's just wonderful to see you.
The comments are so wonderful, and we will be saving them. So we're very grateful for all of that. I don't think I'm going to do a specific survey for this workshop. Usually we do a survey, and in many ways, maybe we're trolling for exactly the comments you're already giving us. So, but I really encourage you, if you have specific thoughts about what worked for you, what didn't work for you, maybe about the getting in process, or just sort of any specific thoughts that can help us do better, please just email us at info@amateurmusic.org. And we appreciate those comments very much. We're always trying to do better. So with that, Ragnar, thank you so much.
Lolly, thank you so much for hosting me. It's we're all missing music making so much, and for me this is so great to connect with all of you singers out there. So thank you so much for joining. This meant a whole lot to me. So thank you all. Thank you, Lolly.
Thank you, and we'll see you again very soon. You'll hear about the series. We're just gonna sort of end the meeting for everybody in about 10 seconds. So we don't mean to be rude. It's just going to shut off. But thanks everyone for coming. Bye.
Bye.